The unbelievable twist of fate. It's often said that God's wisdom is beyond human understanding. Some stories leave you speechless, proving that fate has its own way of working. This story comes from Iraq in 1965, told by a retired judge in his memoirs, something he personally witnessed. A father's love. The judge had a poor neighbor, a hard-working man supporting his entire family, his wife, 3 children, 2 sisters, and his elderly mother. He ran a small vegetable shop, barely making enough to survive. Every night, as the judge sat outside his house, he would hear the man return home, bringing whatever food he could, sometimes meat, sometimes just leftover fruits from his shop. His children would rush to the door, their laughter filling the night air as they grabbed the food with excitement. The judge found himself smiling at their joy, feeling like a silent part of their family, though they never knew he was listening. A tragedy strikes for years. This was the routine. But one night, everything changed. Instead of laughter, the judge heard screams and cries. He rushed outside to see the man's lifeless body being carried home by security officers. The wife was wailing, the children sobbing, the sisters and mother in despair. Their only provider was gone. With no money left, the family was doomed. The eldest son, only 15, was forced to quit school and take over his father's shop. He tried his best, but the business struggled, and the family's joy faded into sorrow. A tough choice. 3 years later, when the son turned 18, the government called him for mandatory military service. Refusing was not an option. Prison and severe punishment awaited those who tried. The family had no choice but to send him away. At the training camp, an officer noticed the young man was always distracted, lost in thought. After several punishments, the officer finally asked, "What's wrong with you?" The boy told his story. Moved by his struggle, the officer arranged for him to work in the kitchen instead of the battlefield. It was the only kindness he could offer. Desperate measures. Meanwhile, back home, things got worse. The mother, out of options, turned to a real estate broker and begged him to lend her money by putting their house up as collateral. He agreed, but with a cruel deal. If she didn't repay in 1 month, the house was his. She had no choice. She took the money. Her real plan? To sell the house before the deadline, use part of the money to buy her son's way out of the army, a legal loophole at the time, and get him back home to work. A race against time. It took 29 days to finalize the sale. She had just 1 day left. With 400 dinars in her pocket, she rushed to the nearest city where the military office was located. But there was a problem. The city was 250 kilometers, about 150 miles away. She needed to leave immediately to make it before the deadline. She ran to the taxi stand, desperate for a ride. But long-distance taxis only left when they had enough passengers. That night, no one else was traveling. She made a bold decision. "I will pay for 5 people. Just take me now." The driver hesitated, but finally agreed. The deadly road. As they drove through the dark, the road became treacherous. They approached a deep valley, notorious for accidents and danger. And then, something happened that no one could have expected. Cliffhanger for suspense.